clay cup lies in the dark earth, pressed long ago with the pattern of twisted cord. Beside it is a polished stone axe, shaped like a weapon but also like a badge. The grave is small. There is no palace above it, no writing on its walls, no king's name carved for memory. Only a body, curled on its side, a few objects placed with care, and a low mound raised against the wind. Across northern Europe, from the Rhine and the North Sea to Poland, the Baltic, Scandinavia, and deep into the forest edge of Eastern Europe, graves like this began to appear around 5,000 years ago. They belonged to what archaeologists call the Corded Ware culture. The name is plain, almost accidental. It comes from the pottery. Before the clay was fired, someone pressed cord into the wet surface, leaving lines that ran around the vessel like rope marks on skin. But the people who made these vessels were part of one of the great turning points in European prehistory. They lived in a world after the first farmers, but before written history. The forests had already been cut in places. Fields of barley and wheat lay near timber houses. Cattle moved through clearings. Old farming communities had raised long barrows, built enclosures, traded stone axes, and buried their dead according to customs already ancient by Corded Ware times. Then something changed. New graves appeared, new vessels, new weapons, new ways of marking men, women, kin, and status. The dead were often buried alone, not in the older collective tombs of many farming societies. The body was flexed, drawn up as though sleeping. The grave goods were spare but deliberate: a cord-marked beaker, a flint blade, amber ornaments, a stone battle axe, sometimes animal bones from a funeral meal. The battle axe is the object that catches the eye. Some were practical weapons, others were too finely made, too polished, too symbolic to be only tools of violence. In Scandinavia, the Corded Ware world is often called the battle axe culture. In parts of the North European plain, it is tied to the single grave tradition. These names point to the same broad phenomenon, a new social world spreading across old farming lands. For a long time, archaeologists argued about what this meant. Was it an invasion, a fashion, a religion, a new elite, a slow cultural drift carried by trade, marriage, and imitation? The answer now looks harder and more human than any single map arrow. Ancient DNA transformed the debate. Studies of Corded Ware burials showed that many of these people carried large amounts of ancestry related to steppe pastoralists from the Pontic Caspian grasslands, especially the Yamnaya horizon east of Europe's farming heartland. In some early samples from Central Europe, the shift was dramatic. A population that had been mostly descended from Neolithic farmers was joined, and in places heavily replaced, by people with deep steppe ancestry. This was not just a new pottery style passing from hand to hand. People moved, families moved. Men with new paternal lineages entered old farming zones. Cattle herders, warriors, wives, children, and dependents crossed rivers and forests into lands already occupied. But the older invasion story also misses too much. Corded Ware did not spread into an empty Europe. It entered a landscape of farmers, hunters, herders, and local traditions. In some regions, the pottery changed, while older ways of making ceramics continued underneath the new shapes. In others, women with local farmer ancestry appear within Corded Ware graves, suggesting marriage, alliance, absorption, or capture. The genetic record shows movement, but the archaeological record shows negotiation on the ground. Imagine a farmstead near the edge of a forest in what is now Poland or Germany. The older fields are still there. The cattle still need winter fodder. The river crossing still matters. But the burial mound on the ridge now follows a different rule. A young man is laid with an axe and a beaker. A woman is buried with ornaments and pottery. Kinship is displayed in the earth. Identity becomes something visible, disciplined, and inherited. Corded Ware society seems to have been organized around households, cattle, mobility, and male status. It had no cities, no temples in stone, no written laws. Its power lay in smaller units, family lines, marriage networks, seasonal movement, control of animals, and the ability to gather men when violence came. The steppe background matters here. The Yamnaya and related groups lived across open grasslands where herding, wagons, and wide mobility shaped life. When their descendants or close relatives moved westward, they entered a different world. Wetter forests, older farms, denser local populations. Corded Ware was born from that collision. It was steppe ancestry filtered through European soil. This is why language enters the story. Many scholars connect the Corded Ware expansion with the spread of Indo-European languages into Northern and Central Europe. The timing fits, the scale of migration fits. Later language families such as Germanic, Balto-Slavic, and perhaps others may ultimately trace part of their deep ancestry to this world. But pottery cannot speak, and DNA cannot recite grammar. The link is powerful, but indirect. What can be said with confidence is that Corded Ware marks one of the major demographic and cultural breaks behind the Europe that followed. Recent research has made the picture sharper. A major study of late Neolithic Bohemia found that early Corded Ware communities there were far from uniform. Some individuals carried strong steppe ancestry, while others, especially women, looked much more local. Over generations, the community became genetically more mixed and socially more structured. The old idea of one migrating people replacing another in a single clean wave gives way to something more turbulent. Incoming male lines, local women, shifting alliances, and new identities built within a few generations. In southeastern Poland, genomic and isotope work on Corded Ware burials found close relatives placed together or near one another, including unusual double graves. Some people were local, others had grown up elsewhere. That means the grave was not just a resting place, it was a statement about belonging. The dead were arranged to show kinship, origin, and memory in a society where family lines mattered. A 2025 study of Nordic Corded Ware skeletal remains added another layer. By modelling age at death, researchers argued that these northern groups were not simply restless nomads moving endlessly across the landscape. Their burial record fits communities with growth, households, children, and a more settled rhythm, even if short seasonal movements remained part of life. The same work suggested stress, violence, and disease were real pressures, and that young people were not invisible in death. Some children and adolescents received graves that marked them as members of valued lineages. Another recent reconstruction of Corded Ware and bell-beaker burial traditions traced how these customs spread across Europe in time and space. The map that emerges is uneven. Some regions adopted the new burial language quickly, others changed more slowly. The Corded Ware horizon was vast, but it was not one empire, one tribe, or one command. It was a shared grammar of objects, graves, ancestry, and status, spoken with regional accents. By about 2400 to 2300 BC, the Corded Ware world was changing again. In Western and Central Europe, bell-beaker traditions rose to prominence. Bronze metallurgy expanded. New exchange networks carried metal, amber, weapons, ornaments, and people over long distances. Some corded ware descendants disappeared into these later cultures. Others helped form them. The cord-marked pots remained in the ground. That is the strange power of this culture. It left no epic poem, no royal inscription, no city wall to admire at sunset. It left graves under fields, axes in museum cases, fragments of clay, teeth that record childhood movement, bones that still hold ancestry, and patterns pressed by cord into wet pottery before anyone knew Europe would one day ask who they were. A person knelt beside that clay vessel and turned it by hand. A cord was pressed into its side. The mark was simple, repeated, and durable. 5,000 years later, it still carries the outline of a world on the move.